Most gardeners in the United States are used to thinking of November as the quiet, shut-down period of the growing season. A time when garden beds are cleaned out, tools are stored away, and the soil is left to sleep until spring. But in recent years, something remarkable has been happening. From Maine to Michigan, from the Pacific Northwest to the Rocky Mountain foothills, more growers than ever are harvesting shockingly abundant yields well into late fall. This shift isn't due to luck. It's the result of a new wave of home gardeners who are combining cold-tolerant crops with simple, accessible, season-extending techniques that dramatically expand what's possible in a backyard garden. These aren't high-tech commercial farms. Many of these impressive November harvests come from raised beds, small suburban greenhouses, or even containers on patios. In today's video, we're diving deep into the strategies that are allowing everyday gardeners to pick crisp greens, sweet carrots, and vibrant herbs long after the first frost. You'll learn how cold-loving varieties stay productive in near-freezing temperatures, how inexpensive covers can create warm microclimates, and how a few small changes in timing can reward you with weeks, even months, of extra food. If you've ever dreamed of stretching your harvest further into fall, or if your garden usually shuts down too early, this is the guide you've been waiting for. Let's explore how you can turn November into one of the most productive times of your gardening year. When people first hear that gardeners across the U.S. are pulling off big November harvests, they often imagine heated greenhouses or expensive equipment. But in reality, the foundation of a successful late-fall garden is much simpler. It starts with choosing the right crops. Plants that love the cold, thrive in low light, and actually improve in flavor as temperatures drop. Cold-tolerant crops aren't just tough. They are biologically adapted to chilly conditions. Many of them naturally increase sugar levels as frost approaches. That sugar acts like a natural antifreeze, helping the plant survive freezing nights while giving the leaves and roots a noticeably sweeter, richer taste. This is why November-grown spinach tastes almost buttery, and why carrots harvested after a frost can be dramatically sweeter than their summer counterparts. Let's look at the heavy hitters that make November harvests not only possible, but incredibly rewarding. Kale. Especially hardy varieties like winterbore or red Russian can survive temperatures down to around 10 degrees Fahrenheit and still produce tender leaves. Spinach, particularly giant winter and Bloomsdale, becomes sweeter after each frost and can continue growing slowly under row covers. Mâche, also known as corn salad, thrives in near-freezing weather and is one of the most dependable greens for late fall and early winter. Carrots. Varieties such as Napoli, Bolero, or Danvers store well in cold soil and continue increasing in sweetness as nighttime temperatures drop. Radishes, especially fast-growing fall varieties like French breakfast or daikon, can tolerate consistent chill and mature reliably even when days grow short. And finally, broccoli and cabbage develop tighter, more compact heads in cool weather, making them great choices for late-season gardeners looking for high-yield, nutrient-packed results. Another key to success is choosing varieties specifically bred for fall. Seed catalogs now label many cultivars as fall hardy, overwintering, or cold resistant, and these traits make a major difference in November performance. In northern states, the right variety can mean the difference between a plant that thrives and one that collapses after the first cold snap. Don't underestimate the power of pairing crop choice with realistic expectations. Growth slows dramatically as daylight shortens, but hardy crops don't need rapid growth to succeed. They simply need to stay alive and continue producing edible, flavorful leaves and roots. Once protected under a simple cover, they can hold for weeks, giving you extended harvest windows well past the traditional end of the gardening season. So before you invest in fancy gear, start by switching to crops that are naturally built for the cold. These varieties are the backbone of every successful November harvest, no matter your climate zone. One of the most exciting parts of modern fall gardening is how incredibly affordable season extenders have become. You no longer need a permanent greenhouse or professional-grade equipment to keep your garden productive deep into November. With just a few simple materials, many of which you may already have, you can raise the temperature around your plants, shield them from frost, and create warm pockets of air that help crops stay vigorous long after the cold sets in. Let's start with low tunnels, the workhorse of late fall gardening. A low tunnel is essentially a series of hoops covered with frost cloth or plastic sheeting. PVC, metal hoops, or even flexible irrigation tubing work perfectly. When covered with a breathable frost blanket, low tunnels can provide several degrees of temperature protection, often enough to keep plants alive through early freezes. If you add a second layer of plastic over the frost cloth, you create what many gardeners call a double tunnel, which can trap even more warmth without overheating the plants. Low tunnels are inexpensive, easy to set up, and surprisingly effective. Next up are cold frames, which act like small, roofed greenhouses. A cold frame captures and stores solar heat during the day and releases it slowly throughout the night, keeping the air inside noticeably warmer than the outside temperature. What makes cold frames so appealing is their versatility. They can be built from scrap materials like old windows, wooden pallets, or repurposed greenhouse panels. Even a simple box with a clear lid can make a dramatic difference in how long your greens will last into fall. For gardeners who want even more protection, mini greenhouses or small polycarbonate structures offer the most stable environment. These compact units warm quickly when the sun is out, buffer plants from wind, and maintain consistent temperatures. Because they're small, they're cheaper to heat if needed, though many gardeners find that passive solar warmth alone is enough to sustain hardy crops through most of November. No matter which season extender you choose, the real key is balancing warmth with airflow. During sunny days, temperatures inside a tunnel or cold frame can climb surprisingly high, even if the outside air is chilly. A quick morning venting, opening the cover for a few minutes, prevents plants from overheating and keeps the microclimate stable. Season extenders work because they trap the heat your garden already provides. The soil absorbs warmth during the day and releases it slowly at night, and your cover holds that warmth in. It's a simple idea, but when combined with cold, hardy crops, it becomes incredibly powerful. With just a bit of plastic, a few hoops, or a salvaged window, you can transform your garden beds into protected micro-environments that produce well into late fall. When gardeners talk about extending the harvest into November, most people picture frost covers and tunnels, and those tools are important. But one of the most underrated strategies for late fall success actually happens at ground level. Your soil, more than anything else, determines whether your plants can handle cold nights, unpredictable temperature swings, and early season frosts. Plants don't just react to the air temperature around them. Their survival depends on the warmth stored in the soil and the ability of their roots to stay insulated. Once soil temperatures drop too low, plants slow down dramatically or stop growing entirely. That's why experienced gardeners spend just as much time thinking about soil heat retention as they do about above-ground protection. One of the simplest and most effective ways to preserve soil warmth is mulching. A thick layer of straw, shredded leaves, pine needles, or compost acts like a natural blanket. It reduces the freeze-thaw cycles that can shock root systems and helps maintain a more consistent temperature beneath the surface. Mulching also prevents soil erosion, protects beneficial microbes, and keeps moisture locked in, all critical factors as the weather transitions from cool to cold. Another powerful strategy is using dark-colored compost or soil top dressings. Dark materials absorb more sunlight during the day and slowly release that stored warmth after sunset. This radiant heat can raise the temperature in a bed by a few degrees, sometimes just enough to keep a crop alive through a borderline frost. Many gardeners apply a final fall layer of compost not only to feed the soil, but also to help stabilize nighttime temperatures. But soil isn't the only place where heat can be stored. Smart gardeners pay close attention to microclimates, small environmental pockets where temperature, light, and wind differ from the surrounding area. For example, a south-facing wall made of brick or stone acts like a giant thermal battery. It absorbs heat throughout the day and radiates it outward at night, creating a warmer zone that can protect greens, herbs, and even some root crops well into November. Similarly, windbreaks can make a major difference in perceived temperature. A simple fence, row of shrubs, or even a temporary barrier can shield plants from chilling gusts. Cold wind strips heat from soil and foliage much faster than still air, so reducing that wind can often mean the difference between a crop that thrives and one that struggles. Raised beds also create microclimates of their own. Because they drain well and warm faster during the daytime, raised beds are ideal for fall gardening, especially when combined with strategic mulching and covers. Stone or brick borders add even more radiant heat, amplifying the effect. When you combine all these methods, mulching, dark top dressings, wind protection, and warm structural surfaces, you can easily create a garden environment that's several degrees warmer than the surrounding area. And in late fall, just a few degrees can be the difference between failure and a surprisingly abundant November harvest. The beauty is that none of these techniques require advanced tools or big investments. They're simple, natural solutions that work with your environment, not against it. When we talk about harvesting in November, it's easy to focus on techniques like tunnels and mulch. But the truth is, your late fall success is determined long before the cold arrives. In fact, the secret to a productive November harvest often begins back in late summer. The timing of when you plant each crop is one of the most important elements of fall gardening, and getting it right can unlock weeks of extra food. Fall crops grow differently than spring and summer crops because they mature while daylight hours are steadily decreasing. As we move from September into October, plants receive fewer hours of sunlight each day, which naturally slows growth. Because of this, fall crops need to be planted early enough to reach at least 70 to 80% of their mature size before daylight becomes too short. Once day length drops below about 10 hours, a period many gardeners call the Persephone window, plant growth nearly stops. Your crops won't die, but they will hold in place, waiting for longer days. That means your fall timeline has to work backward from the expected daylight decline. For much of the U.S., The 10-hour daylight point falls somewhere in November, depending on latitude. Northern states hit it earlier, southern states a bit later. To stay productive, gardeners typically plant their final rounds of spinach, kale, carrots, and radishes in late August through mid-September. This gives the plants enough warm days to establish strong roots, which will carry them through the cold months with minimal energy. Another powerful technique is succession planting, which involves sowing seeds in small batches every 10 to 14 days. Instead of planting one large crop all at once, you create a steady pipeline of greens and roots at different growth stages. This approach not only spreads out your harvest, but also makes your garden more resilient. If one planting gets hit by an early frost or a warm spell, your other plantings are still on track. Succession planting can be applied to many fall favorites: spinach, radishes, lettuce, arugula, beets, and kale. All perform exceptionally well when staggered throughout late summer and early fall. Carrots, which take longer to mature, should be planted earlier, but still benefit from 2 or 3 waves of sowing. Some gardeners even seed a final batch of fast-growing greens, like mustard or baby lettuce, under low tunnels in early October to harvest through Thanksgiving. To stay organized, many gardeners rely on written plans or digital planting charts. Tracking sowing dates, expected maturity, and frost predictions helps you structure the fall season with confidence. Even a simple notebook can become a powerful tool for understanding your local frost patterns and improving from year to year. Remember, timing does more than influence size. It also helps build resilience. A plant that goes into cold weather with a well-developed root system is far more capable of surviving temperature swings, frost events, and shorter daylight. With the right timing, your November harvest doesn't just become possible, it becomes abundant, predictable, and remarkably satisfying. As we wrap up our deep dive into late fall gardening, it's worth stepping back and appreciating just how far modern gardeners have come. Not long ago, the idea of harvesting fresh greens or sweet root crops in November sounded unrealistic for most of the U.S. Today, thanks to cold-tolerant varieties, simple season extenders, and smart timing, thousands of gardeners are discovering that late fall can be one of the most productive seasons of the entire year. Think about how much potential lies in your own garden. Maybe you're already growing kale or spinach. Maybe you've experimented with a cold frame or a simple row cover. Even if you've never grown past October, the methods we've covered today give you everything you need to change that. By combining the right crops with a little protection and good soil management, you can enjoy a steady stream of fresh food long after your neighbors have put their gardens to bed. And the best part? This type of gardening is incredibly rewarding. There's something special about lifting a row cover on a cold morning and finding vibrant green leaves waiting for you. Or pulling up a carrot that has become sweeter than anything you tasted in the summer. These small moments add a whole new dimension to your garden, one filled with resilience, curiosity, and the joy of discovering what's possible when you work with the seasons, not against them. So as you plan your next fall garden, don't be afraid to experiment. Try a new cold-hardy variety. Build a simple low tunnel. Add a layer of mulch. Plant a late batch of spinach. You might be surprised by how much your garden can give you, even after the first frost. Thank you for joining me today. If this video inspired you or gave you new ideas, consider subscribing so you don't miss our upcoming guides on winter sowing, greenhouse growing, and early spring planting. Until then, stay curious, stay growing, and enjoy every moment of your late fall harvest.